ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Rodeo Today in the World of Cowboys. We're blessed right now that we got a call-in guest, one of my favorite Bulldoggers out there on the deal. Welcome, Mr. Tyler Waguespack. How are you, Tyler?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Glad to have you. You tell me you're on the road to the American. Is that where you're headed?
Yes, sir. I'm headed up to the semifinals, and everything is going on this week. I'm going to go help a couple guys out. My wife's competing up there and stuff, so spend the week up there and get ready for the American.
When will you compete at the American?
I'll run my first one on Friday. They'll have the top 10 from last year plus the 6 qualifiers that get in will all run a steer Friday night. And the top 10, they'll go on to AT&T Stadium on Sunday.
Tyler, in that format, help me a little bit. They got 3 performances of the rodeo up there. Do they bring 2 from each performance, or is it the top 6 times?
Well, they will bring.
Or do you know?
I believe it's the top 6 times. They'll get it down after the slack that's going on today. Everybody runs 2, and they'll get it down to 30 guys.
Right.
And then I'm pretty sure that they'll go on and get 6 guys out of the 30 in those performances. And so I know 6 of them will compete with us on Friday night.
Well, do you think they'll drop the times from the first 2?
Now that I'm not sure. It's each year they've done it a little bit different. I'm not exactly sure if they're doing the average this year or if it's just going to be single fast times.
Yes.
I would think it's going to have to be single fast times because they're going to bring the 2 runs in the slack are coming from one arena, and then they're bringing it to a totally new arena for the third round. I think they would do a single fast time.
Okay, I got you. Where is the arena they're having the slack at today?
They're up in Decatur at the NRS arena right now is where all the guys are at. I've been on the phone all morning. Different guys calling me about different steers and stuff because the steers that we just ran at San Antonio are actually up there right now. So
whose steers are them?
What's that?
Who's the owner of them steers? Is that?
That's Jeff Miller.
Jeff Miller, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we used his steers at our jackpot there in Texas for the kids. Okay,
yes,
with that being said, you're having a pretty good winter. You got out of San Antonio second place. Was it second you won for the high money winner, I believe?
Yes, sir.
How much money did you win?
I went just a little over $16,000 out of San Antonio, so it wasn't a bad week.
And what did you get done at Fort Worth?
Fort Worth, I won both rounds of my preliminary bracket, and then I come in the wild card, and I had a steer slip a horn by me and get away.
I see. So you've been having
that Fort Worth is definitely my nemesis. I've got 2 rodeos I've never made the short round at, Cheyenne and Fort Worth, and they're the 2 rodeos you always hear all the cowboys talk about, and my ass can't get in there.
You know, I've got a stat you may not know about me. I've won every major rodeo except 2. And I've won second at both of them 6 times. That's Fort Worth and Cheyenne.
I'll tell you, that's my 2 dang nemesis. I tell them, I just want to get a piece of the action of them son of a guns. Just can't ever seem to do it.
Well, let me ask you another question. Let's talk a little bit about tournament rodeo because that's been on everybody's plate right here lately, and you got a bunch of old timers like myself that they can't convince that it's a good format, and I've told this before. My complaint with the tournament rodeo, it relies too much on the draw.
Absolutely.
The guy usually in the steer wrestling, not always, but most of the time at the tournament rodeos, and that's kind of like the day monies at the national finals. When you get the cream of the cream of the cream, the top guys, they're not top guys because they mess up steers.
Exactly.
The top guys are going to be able to throw the steers down. When you got 10 steers or 15 steers, one steer's usually going to be better than the others.
Absolutely. And you know, it happened over at Denver this year. Great Bulldogger Mike McGinn won the championship. He got the buckle at Denver this year. But there was 3 of us that had more money won at the Denver Rodeo this year than Mike McGinn. And like I say, he come into the short round, made a tremendous run. Made a great run, was 3-6. But throughout the week, between Tristan Martin and myself, he and I, if you'd have played it out on average, we had everybody kind of daylighted a little bit. Kyle Irwin would have been a guy that would have won 3rd in the rodeo there. But it come down to the guy that got the buckle is the guy that wins the last round. So yeah, I'd love the rodeos. I mean, like you say, the old Cheyenne, old Fort Worth that's the best type of setups where, you know, you got 200 something guys running steers And the guy that's on top of the average at the end is the guy that gets your buckle. Because, I mean, yeah, anybody, like you say, can look up, have a great steer, and win a go-round. But, I mean, like I say, I think the true champion is the man that goes out there and wins it throughout the week.
I do too. And in part of what I'm not trying to be, really and truly, the rodeos at Denver, Fort Worth, and Cheyenne, even though I'm not criticizing them, they put up a lot of money.
Absolutely. And
but it's not enough money to use the tournament system when they tell 150 guys, you can't come. Now, let me run this one by you. And I'm hitting you the first time with it, and it's just, you can come. I don't put nobody under the gun on this show. I will not. And if you don't refuse to answer or don't want to, it's just, I get it. What would be wrong with saying Fort Worth, they want 50 guys, or isn't it 54, 55 guys?
Yeah, 56.
56, okay. The rodeo committee really don't care what 56 they get. They just want the 56 best guys. Mm-hmm. Would you be afraid or have any problem with, and including this deal, that it would increase the amount of money in the pot at Fort Worth by more than double? So under this scenario, it's going to be more than double. I'm going to bring all 250. I'll take permits. I want all 250 guys to come to Fort Worth. And we'll just run one steer, and it don't pay nothing. It just pays like a round of golf that you got to get in the top 56.
Yep.
Is there ever a day in your rodeo career that you didn't think you could get in the top 56?
No, and just to kind of go along with what you're saying, I'm one that I argue for the rookies, for the guys that are coming up and all that kinds of stuff all the time, because there's so many places where, like, I rodeoed this past year with Mark Joyner. He won the Rookie of the Year. Well, all throughout the winter, his hands were tied. They wouldn't allow him to go to any rodeos. So he had to bust it in the summer just to try to crawl into the top 30. I mean, he had to rodeo his butt off all year long. But I'm one that thinks that if you're going to go out and buy the same PRCA card that I have, whenever the call-in comes up for Denver or Cheyenne or San Antonio, rather, they should all be able to put their name in a hat. And I've talked to several people about, well, it's hard getting the amount of steers and all this kind of stuff and how much money it would cost and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think they realize how much more money is being brought into the deal by letting everybody in.
First of all, the association or the steer wrestlers, anything, could make money putting it on. We're not asking the rodeo to put the deal on. You could put it on like a one jackpot. Miller could bring half enough steers, 100 steers, whatever. Four runs on the cattle. You draw to win you are. You're not trying to win first. You're trying to win 56th or better.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's a lot of guys I'm watching on TV out there. They can't get in the top 56. And there's a lot of guys that's in the top 56 that I seen Bulldog lately at San Antonio, and I'm not going to pick a name, but they're not going to win nothing. They would have been better off to go to Kissimmee or somewhere else than just to get their name called at San Antonio, and not just in the Bulldog, and more especially in the barrel race. You're familiar with the barrel race. Your wife's a barrel racer, a great barrel racer. There's girls that come in, they got no shot.
Yep.
I mean, when Haley Kinsel drawed first on the ground the other night at San Antonio, and she ain't got to the first barrel, and I said, there's your champion.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is. And I mean, and I could have, if I would have known the steers, I'm sure the steer that JD had was a great steer. You're not three on a sorry steer very often, unless something goes. And I don't know what they had done on that steer previously, but he is obviously good. The steer you had was obviously good. And what made the difference in a lot of it, I think, was your yellow horse. Let me give you a time to talk about old Yeller. I get them confused. So get me about the two horses and the ownerships and whatever, because the announcers dang sure don't get it. And I'm not out there on the road. So there's two yellow horses. Tell me about them.
Yeah, the one yellow horse that we ride, like that we rode at the NFR and stuff like that, that's Casper.
Stop right there. Who's we?
Go ahead.
Tell me who we is.
Well, at the NFR this year, Tyler Pearson, myself, rode him at at the NFR. He's owned by Tyler Pearson.
Okay, and his name is
Casper.
And he's the lighter colored one,
He's
right?
a lighter colored yellow. And
Okay,
he's got a little bit of a blaze on his face.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir. And then the darker colored yellow, which is like the one I rode at Denver, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and all that. That's Cheese. That's mine. He's the darker colored yellow.
Okay, and you've just started riding him since the NFR.
Well, no, I rode him toward the end of last year. We took him. We took him some over the summer, and then he got a lot of runs in the Northwest last year.
No. I guess what I'm saying is you did not ride him at the Thomas and Mack.
No, I did. I felt like he was not ready for it.
Okay, that was my question. Okay, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. We in fact we won a bunch of tour rodeos on him there in the Northwest. Me and Kyle Irwin rode him a bunch up there. Had a lot of success on him, but he was I knew he had never been in any type of buildings and stuff, so I was a little skeptical about throwing him to the wolves there at the Thomas and Mack. And we knew Casper was going to work great in that building. He had been in them setups a ton before. So this year right here, I was able to take my horse Cheese to all the, like I say, the Denver, the Fort Worth, San Antonio, get him into the little coliseums and stuff like that. And man, I'm sure happy with him. He sure is kind of stepping up to the plate for me.
One other question there. I know you kind of rodeo with Tyler and Irwin and them guys on y'all's buddy system. When y'all enter them tournament rodeos, do y'all split y'all's buddies up?
Oh, absolutely. We don't want to butt heads with our buddy group. Yeah, and with it being 4 and a perf, I mean, a horse would have to go run back to back to back. I mean, it kind of splits the horses up, makes it easier on them. And like I said, whenever we call in to enter a rodeo, our goal is for everybody that we're entering in our group to make the short round. And it's hard whenever you got to butt heads with them the whole way through. So if we split up, we'll try to get the money in two different sets than just one.
Now that's something right there that's changed completely with the new generation and has created the new deal in tournament rodeo. In my day, we wanted to, my buddy group wanted to find out when another tough buddy group was going to go because the steers were back to back. So we wanted to make sure everybody in that group could really bulldog. So it made them better. I mean, Roy Guval would make a steer after he had him. He was absolutely a better steer the next time. And we wanted guys like that to rodeo so we kind of did the opposite.
Well, at the tournament style deals right now, it is the better guys are the only, or not. Let me take that back. It's not the better guys, but you have like San Antonio, the top 50 guys in the world standings are the ones that are going. So it's kind of hard to draw away from guys that are having hard times with their bulldogging. You know what I mean? Like for instance, our set at San Antonio, there was no steer that never got placed on out of the 10 steers that was in our bracket. You know what I mean? Like the steers, they all did gradually get better because runs were being made on all of them.
Right.
Yeah. And another thing that I think is also different, which I'm not sure what was the rodeo count back whenever you were rodeoing, Mr. Byron?
Well, when I first made the finals in 1977, it was unlimited. And there was guys going. The most I ever went to one year is 1981, and I went to 121 rodeos, and that's because I'd had 2 World's Championships taken away from me with them changing the rules, making the final sudden death. So I wanted to eliminate all doubt that year and really went to a lot. But normally, then somewhere in the 84 or 5 after that, sometime in there, they come up with the 100 rodeo rule, and really that's when it made it to where the calf ropers quit making the finals in the bulldogging.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with 100, but like right now we're at 75 rodeos, so a lot of guys are picking and choosing where they go, which that's kind of another reason that we can split up at San Antonio because we're not pressed for time anymore. Because, hey, we don't need to burn up all of our rodeos. Normally, if we had 100 rodeos, I'd go to San Antonio and I'd take off and go to Kissimmee and Okeechobee and then fly right back into San Antonio. But now, with only having 75 rodeos to go to, we kind of got to pick and choose what all we go to and count. Now, as the year goes and guys are getting more money won, then they can kind of go to more rodeos and stuff like that. But for guys that are maybe not having the greatest winter that they have, they're going to need all those rodeos toward the end of the summer. So they got to kind of save them. And I think that's what's kind of hurting a lot of these rodeos as far as getting the amount of entries at them. The big rodeos are still going to have you enter, but it's the kind of middle of the line rodeos that people aren't trying to stick their neck out and go to them because they got to save room for rodeos later on in the year.
Tyler, I'm sure glad you said that. That is something that if this podcast don't do anything else for rodeo, every rodeo committee that of the 600 rodeos that they pay their money to the PRCA needed to hear exactly what you just said, because they've limited the amount of rodeos you go to 75. So
It's nothing against rodeos like that. Like Kissimmee and Okeechobee are my circuit rodeos. But with the new rules that we have this year that we can only go to so many, I can't afford to leave San Antonio and bust my butt to get down there like I normally would, because I've got to make sure that I've got enough rodeos toward the end of the year. Well, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that's not hustling to get to their rodeos right now because they're pretty gun shy about how many of them to burn up this early in the year. Well, and so you got great rodeos such as that are getting kind of busted on the amount of entries because
not just the entry, it's the quality of the entries. If I have a rodeo and I'm putting that money up, and I'm not gonna be one of the 75 rodeos, and I'm not gonna get KC Fields, Tyler, Waguespack, Tough Cooper, the top guys there, that's handicapping the rodeos. Now, you did say one thing that was a little bit wrong. I'm going to correct you, but you can still go to them rodeos, but you would have had to unofficial them.
Yes, you would have to. Yes. As of right now,
I wanted to clarify that. But they use that, we can go. But let me tell you something. I've got a couple of go buckles, and you do too. I had a rule. If it wasn't good enough to count, it wasn't good enough to go to.
I'm going by that same rule right now.
There you go. I had to say that because they always throw that up. Oh, well, they can go wherever they want to, and that is true. But if it wasn't good enough to count, I didn't go to it. So you play by the same rule too, and I think most everybody does. Now, with all that being said, another thing with the limited and the 75 rodeos, this is my opinion. I'll share it with you, and you can either comment or whatever. I'm going to lead you into it. I do not believe that these rodeos like Houston, and I'm going to use Houston for example, or a Calgary, that's got the tournament rodeo that pays $50,000 for first, and then it'll pay way down like $20,000 for second, should be approved, because if you win that $50,000, you're pretty much almost in the NFR. But if you win second at 3 of them, you don't win what that guy did. I don't have a problem with that waiting, paying $50,000. That's great. But second needs to pay, 30%. If it pay, just back it up 40, 30, 20, 10, there shouldn't be that big a gap between first, second. Fourth place at that rodeo won't pay $5,000.
Well, even if they took the money, divvied it up, and made it more of an equal paying rodeo, Calgary and Houston are still going to be the 2 biggest rodeos that there are for us to go to. And I can agree with that. It would allow more people to win good money instead of a couple people winning great money. And like I say, they'd still be paying out all the same stuff. But at the end of the day, if you add that much money, you're going to get the top guys to go, whether it counts, doesn't count. Whether
it don't have no effect on that rodeo. I mean, I'm not sure that Houston wasn't a better rodeo, and I was there with you when you was going. I wasn't sure it wasn't a better rodeo when it didn't count.
Like I say, they were never going to not get the guys.
No.
If you have Rodeo Houston and I'm retired from rodeo and they send an invite, I'm probably going to get loaded up, ready to go and go run that son of a gun. Just because it's such a great rodeo. I mean, you'll never hear me say anything bad about Houston because it is one of my favorite places to go every year.
You know what? It was one of mine, and it was where I won probably more at I think I got to Bulldog in the new building one time, and it's a shame that you didn't get to Bulldog in the Astrodome. There was something about the mystique of the Astrodome and that size of that arena and them steers and the way they come left that it's something I know a guy that Bulldogs like you do, you would have loved it.
I've heard a lot of stories about the Astrodome and stuff. Yeah, I wish I could have been around then.
I mean, the deal at Houston now, I don't know why they don't let the barrier out. Was it last year or the last time they had Houston, they had the fresh steers?
That was, the last year they had it was fresher cattle, yeah.
And boy, that was a good Bulldog.
It's going to be good watching this year, I think.
What kind of cattle do you think they're going to have this year?
They're gonna be just average size cattle, but we run them at Jackson earlier a couple weeks ago, And I'm telling you, in that building, they are going to be screaming, running. Like it's going to be a definite horsepower rodeo in that building, because if you catch one before the chalk line, I'm going to say you got your hands on one dirty fast. And that chalk line, if for anybody that has watched Houston, that chalk line is way out there.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't see there being any 3-second runs. I think if you get one long 4 to short 5, you're going to be letting the air out of one.
That's great. I'm glad you said that. All right, I'm gonna close up and ask you a couple more questions. And I know you're I'm probably going to guess where you're going to guess, but it wouldn't be for that. I might be surprised. The Bulldogging at Thomas and Mack versus the Bulldogging we had at Arlington. Talk to me about the difference and which one you like the best. And not just because you won more at the Thomas and Mack. Don't do that.
Well, as far as the show goes, I think the show and the atmosphere at the Thomas and Mack, I don't think you can beat it. As far as they're on top of you. It's a little small building. And like I say, the show, it's going to be a 3-second bulldogging every night. That being said, I would love to see the NFR in Arlington with no COVID stipulations, where they can fill that stadium up and have all the people there and have a big
40,000 people on top of you screaming versus 15.
Exactly. I mean, we got to see it, but we didn't get to actually see it in there. You know what I mean?
I know.
So many stipulations.
I mostly was talking about the contest. The contest reminded me is when it left Oklahoma City and it went to Vegas, the steer wrestling, our event changed.
Well, it takes the cowboy out.
Yeah, thank you.
Whenever you back in the box at Thomas and Mack, like I say, I pride myself on whenever I was younger, my dad used to have me on all kinds of different horses. We had an old bulldogging chute that, I mean, it would take it a full second to finally open. So whenever we were little, we had to sit there and work on our score and on our ride. Steers would come out in the arena. They may be drifting left, drifting right, or, we may be out late. We may be breaking out, what have you. Whereas at the Thomas and Mack, it's the same thing every time. Whoever can get there the fastest. And like you say, the top 15 guys, you very rarely make a mistake. So let's get there the fastest and make our run on them cattle, and that's who the winner is. Whereas I'd love to see it where you'd have to see a step on some steers over there, where they have enough room to where if you do miss the barrier, they're going to drift left or they're going to drift right. Because at the Thomas and Mack, if you miss the barrier a little bit in the bulldogging, they're not really coming left. They're going to the outgate no matter what. It's just go ahead, catch back up, throw him down. I think it would be more of a Cowboys event at Arlington, and I would love to see it there. But like I say, and also you can't take away from the Thomas and Mack, because that is the best atmosphere I've ever been in rodeo.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I do not disagree with anything you just said there. And I think when the contract comes back up, I mean, hopefully Las Vegas seen what can happen. And if they want to keep the rodeo, they better find them a facility to have it. Because in my opinion, that facility is about 10 or 15 years outdated right now. So hopefully they will. I don't care where it is. I'm just going to be, hopefully I'm here to watch it and cheer you on. I'm a fan of yours, Tyler. I think you're one of the only guys that rock their head off of the horse. You ride horse, and it's all come from this visit, us talking about you, talking about you practice under all conditions. And another thing too, I want to congratulate you, and I don't know what your relationship is, and I'll close with that. Tell me a little bit about what you and Tom and y'all, if I had a young cowboy right now that wanted to become a steer wrestler, I would probably send him to y'all's schools or whatever y'all have to learn, because I believe y'all fundamentally do it right better than anybody I see out there.
Man, I tell you, whenever I first got started, like I say, everybody always says Tom, and by all means, Tom has done a lot of great things for me in my steer wrestling. Me and my dad are really the two that have grinded it out in the practice pen. And now back to Tom. If, like you said, a young guy going to get started, I don't think there's anybody that slows it down, can teach a kid, the positions to put their body in. And Tom's the one that whenever he's talking to you, he'll almost feel like he's learning with you whenever you're trying to do it, and work to getting somebody kind of, I mean, he'll talk to you and get you sure enough into it and feeling your progress and all that kind of stuff. And like you said, for a young guy to get started in the fundamentals, I mean, he's got kind of a little set program that if you need to go there for a weekend and get yourself to catching steers, sliding steers, throwing steers down, I mean, Tom, he does a great job at getting guys started and ready to go out to rodeo.
Well, the problem with our event, Tyler, versus the problem with the other events, to have clinics or schools or whatever it does, like the team ropers do, and if you're a team roper, you can go to a clinic. Joe Beavers has the time. He puts on a lot of calf roping clinics and stuff. The actual cost of putting a school on, first of all, this is why I tried to put some schools on, and you do. Basically, you're donating your time because you're not making any money.
No,
it's a money losing deal, because a lot of times there'll be somebody that you're going to help, and when he gets off on his first steer, if he knocks that steer down and shears his horns off, you've lost money on the whole school. And that's not being ugly, but we just can't afford to do it.
Well, you're absolutely right on the like you say, break it even part. We don't do it to make any money and stuff. Kyle Irwin, Tyler Pearson, and myself are actually putting on a school in April. And like I say, if anybody wants to look it up, you can find it on Facebook and put your name down. It'll be just south of Birmingham, Alabama is where we'll have this one. But we're going to do a couple of them throughout the year.
Well,
but
good for
like
you.
I say, for kids to come out and get started and stuff like that, like I say, I enjoy having fun with kids, and they don't realize how much they're teaching me whenever we're out there. Because if I tell a kid, to have a good foundation or base on your feet and be over the inside horn and stuff like that, whenever I go to run my next year, I think sure better do that if I'm going to start telling somebody that's what they need to do. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, the schools are fun for me because I like to see the progress in the kids, and it helps me in return. And if the kids aren't out there and working to get better, I mean, what's going to happen to our event if we don't have anybody coming up? And that's another thing. That's why I hate to say it.
I'm going to tell you another thing, too, and this is my opinion. I'm going to help you with your deal. There's about 20 guys that was entered at San Antonio might ought to go to your school, because them running that nose back at that tail, or run, how to ride. I'd like to have a seminar down there to teach some of these rodeo cowboys how to ride a horse in the box, turn him around, back him in the corner, and nod your head.
Well, I tell you, I can agree with you a lot, and I'll never say that any person's style is different, because at the end of the day, we're chasing farm animals trying to throw one down. I know I've got a lot of things that I do that I think works better for me than it does for somebody else. So anybody that comes to me, I will always give a helping hand and do whatever it takes to help better them. I tell you a story that you'd enjoy, because I know how much you like Mr. Roy, but whenever I was up there at Oates' house, we'd always go and have breakfast with them. And Mr. Roy Duval said one time, he said, boys, he said, I tell you, he said, back whenever I was rodeoing, I used to love helping somebody out. I would always want to help somebody be the best that they can be. He said, because at the end of the year, they give away a buckle that says world champion. He said, how good does it feel to hold up the gold buckle saying world champion, knowing that you helped everybody out there to be the best that they can be, and you still came out on top? I told him, I said, man, that's kind of one of the toughest things I ever heard, and that's pretty stout to just always be out there helping everybody win. And at the end of the day, you're still backing in the box and you're trying to win all you can too. So, I mean, that's what he was always telling me about those buckles that he had won. So,
well, you know what, Tyler, I think you do the same thing, and you're a credit to our sport. And I want to thank you for being with me today. This is what this podcast is all about. Feel free to, if you ever want something, that there's something out there. This is designed for the Cowboys to get to meet the fans, and us to get behind the chutes and hear about the problems, the solutions, the things that go through with the rules and the committees and the things, so the fans out there do get to see the other side of us. And you're a credit to our sport and a great ambassador. And yes, I'm number one on your fan club.
Well, I do appreciate that. Thanks for having me today.
All righty. Okay. Well, that was Tyler, and we'll go to a commercial break and we'll come right back.
We'd like to take this time to thank our sponsors at Frontier Rodeo Coffee. Each bean roasted to perfection, and the spirit of the West in every cup.
Oh, wow. What a great show. Man, between Tuff and Tyler this week, it's been great. Hopefully you fans like that, and reach down there on that subscribe button and hit us, and we'll get to you with our next podcast. We got Steely Steiner coming up later, and there with talking about her big win, and we got some more guests coming along later. So, thank y'all, and be with us here at Rodeo today. Bye.